Welcome and thank you for joining Plan to Paint. Today we are going to pick up on part 3 of our 4-part series of painting this teddy bear in rose, as you can see in the upper left hand corner there. And today we're just painting the rose. So stem, a couple of leaves, and the rose petals. So we're going to start by mixing out our colors. And this is a very soft, kind of a warm pink in this rose. So we're going to start actually with a little bit of Naples yellow. We're mixing the light here. And a bit of white to bring that up in value a bit. It's pretty soft, pretty light in value. A little bit of white with this mixture. I'm going to use a little bit of Chevre red, I think. Just a small touch. And we'll get that mixed in here and compare it to our reference photo off to the side here. And this almost, it's warm enough, it almost has a peach feel to it. Alright, so we're still on the right track for hue, but still a little bit too dark in value, so we're going to add a bit more white to bring this up and to wash it out a little bit, as the reference is a very pale let's check this little bit here against our reference. I'm actually liking that for the body here of the petals. There's a lot of little variations in here, some small shadows. There's shadow back in the back here, but for this top section, a good bit in here, I think this will work out pretty nicely. And I'm going to add a little white to the rest of that that's on the palette here. Right now I've only mixed this small amount. So I want to gather this up together and bring it all up to that value. It's probably a little too much. And if you can see that, it's actually a little bit lighter. Bring this back in with it to bring it all down a little bit into a common value and hue. We try to mix our paint thoroughly so we don't end up with unintended streaks of color. When you get down to fine subtlety, control of the material, control of your surface, control is really the word, so that you can represent things exactly as you intend. And you can recreate them then as needed as well. When you have random streaks in there, sometimes it helps with variety, but variation. But you don't have control. You can't recreate that same effect in the same way. Whereas if you have control and you want extra streaks of color, you can simply place them and repeat it each time you would like to do so. So I'm adding some white for this lighter portion out here as it turns up towards the light source. We're going to bring that up. Check that against my reference over here. So yeah, it's a pretty close match. So we have two of our main light values. There's actually, as it moves down towards the stem, towards these leaves, it actually kind of warms up even a little bit more. So I'm going to put a touch more Naples yellow in a bit. So we have our cooler white here, our standard pink, and then we're going to have a little bit more of a peach. It's also a little bit lighter in value than what we have in our main, so I'll have to add a bit of white to bring this up as well. But you see we kind of turn almost peach completely. So you can see we've got our softest pink, our pink, and I'm probably going to need to bring that a little bit back to red. I went a little too much with the Naples yellow. So that's easy enough. We'll just grab a little bit of the red and we'll pull it back. And see, it's not quite so glaringly different now. Mix that in better. And it's such a small area and the paint's very loaded with pigment. It's a good old Holland paint. It's good quality paint. If you're using more of a student grade paint, you'll find sometimes you need more paint to get the opacity, the thickness that you want. And sometimes multiple layers are even necessary because it just doesn't lay down a thick enough coat of pigment on a single pass. So better quality paints will make your life easier and save you time. So the expense is often very worth it. So it's kind of hard to see with the amount of light that's hitting that right now. It's kind of washing it out a bit. But we actually exist somewhere between these two in value. Really close to this one. Alright, so we got our lights for our rose, for the petals. And as it turns to shadow, it actually kind of has a little bit more of a, well, I guess it's still in the light over here. This region right in here, you can see there's a hard shadow, cast shadow by this petal onto this petal, but this little bit's in light. It actually has more of the pink, more of the red color coming through, so it's a little bit more of a vibrant pink. It's not a vibrant pink by any means, but in relation to what's on the other petal, it's more vibrant. So we're going to want to mix a similar shade for that. Naples yellow, a little bit of white, a little bit of the red. But we're going to want a little bit more red in relation to the rest of those hues, the rest of those paints. So that's probably too much white. There's not a lot in the light over here, so we'll, as you can see, that's got way too much red in it. So we'll add a little more Naples yellow, a little more white, and we'll pull out some of that red. You could also, maybe we'll try that a little bit here, using the complementary colors instead of pulling color out. I just used that permanent green. It's a lot less red now. It actually almost pulled up too much purple. But let me compare that against our reference here. I might... that almost matches up with what we have in our heart here. So So I don't want to leave that per se. I'm going to add a little more Naples yellow. So we want this to be close in value to our lights over here without being the same value. We want it to be a little bit lower in value but still well within our lights. If you're new to painting, you can find out more about this particular palette arrangement on the Evolve Artist website. I have a link in the description. I'll also be linking in the description to videos 1 and 2 of this series. I have not done so this morning yet. Once we're wrapped up here, I will go back in and edit that, tie those together, and probably I think I actually will leave that. We'll make our shadows fall into a darker value range. Alright, so we have lights for all of our petals that are in the light here. We've got a section here that's very pale, a nice pink, kind of a warm pink. And we've got this cooler pink back here, but more vibrant. Alright, so now we're going to mix shadows, and for the shadows we're going to start with pretty similar mix as what we used for our lights. But we want to pull out a lot of that color, so we're going to use a little bit of our greens and some Naples yellow in here, just a touch, because we really want it to go darker. And then place the Naples yellow. I'm going to use a little bit of burnt umber. And you can see real quick, there's a definite contrast of value. Definitely steps down in value, but still shows as a pink hue. And we are still a good bit too high in value. So I'm going to add a little bit of this permanent green and a little bit of black. And you can see we have a very kind of a red leaning dark gray. In quite contrast to what we have in our lights. And this represents our darkest shadow that appears back in here, this cast shadow, and a little bit as we turn from our outside form. And then we'll add a little bit of I need to mix a larger amount of this, or we're not gonna have anything to mix some lights into to bring it up. It's probably too much black. Alright. So I'm going to take a bit of this. To that we're going to add some maple yellow. A little bit of red just to bring it back towards that pink as we come out of the shadow. And a bit more of the white. Trying to get a color that's kind of a lighter shadow. And walking back towards the pink, so I'm trying to step up from this purpley pink shadow up to the pink lights. And so we're going to take this, slide it over here. If you notice, I'm kind of laying out my palette so that I have my lightest lights to my darkest lights and my lightest shadows to my darkest shadows. That helps to keep your palette organized, makes some of the decisions easier, makes you less likely to make some marks you didn't intend by picking up an incorrect paint. You can see there's this distinct jump where this is just a tad darker in value and leaning a little bit more into the purples for our shadows, but it's a clear step up from our darkest shadow. Alright, and we also have a stem and some leaves, so let's mix some paints for those. It's a very kind of almost a brown with some touches of green on this edge and in the stem, and then this leaf here is in the light and very pretty vibrant green. There's actually a little bit of leaf catching some light here, but mostly in the shadow, and this leaf here is pretty much all in shadow. So I guess there's a little bit of light caught just on the tip out here. So I'm going to start by mixing the light for the greenest portion. I'm going to start with some permanent green. And to that I'm going to add my yellow green to bring out some of the blue that's in there. Bring it back towards the green. And so you'll see we got, you can see where the yellow green was added to the bottom, how bright it is compared to the top. We'll get this mixed in. And it makes almost a grassy green. Initially, it's just basically a very middle ground green. And that's still very much too bright for what we have going on here. So I'm going to bring down a touch of English red. And English red is a very strong pigment. So you want just the smallest little amount. I mean, you can barely see it's on the edge of the... I can get this close enough to see it or not, but there's just barely a small amount on there. And you'll see once it gets in there that it really brings down that brightness. That little bit of red. You get something a little more earthy. And that's one of the things nice about English red is it's an earth tone. Basically based on iron oxide, so it's kind of a rust red. But it has a place in so many colors because most of our colors are earthbound, earth-based. And we've got a color that's a little bit warmer than what's going on here yet, so I'm going to see here. Am I too light yet? Yeah. Put a touch more of that English red in, and then a little bit of our Chev yellow to make it a little bit warmer. And And by the way, this green and the English red, they kind of start to make a brown. So we can continue adding some English red and yellow to the mix if we wanted to achieve our brown hues for the stem and for the side of that upper leaf. And we're just going to use a bit of yellow. Just want to push this a little bit warmer. In relation to the green that we have here, that's actually our cool yellow, but it doesn't dilute the colors quite as much as the Naples yellow does. It adds its own sense of chroma to the pigments. And so we've got a much more muted still too much green compared to that reference. That reference really is almost just a green leading brown. So another touch of English red. Starting to feel very brown. Alright. By mixing these colors, I'm getting too much of my original paints pulled off of the palette and cleaned off on this paper towel so I don't contaminate my colors, but I've used up some of it, spreading it around on my palette and then cleaning off the palette knife. So I'm going to bring down a bunch more because I'm just using too much up. It's good to take mental notes as you're doing this of the proportions of pigment that you add when you're mixing your colors so that you can more quickly get into the ballpark of the colors you have. And times when you have to remix your colors. You'll see a lot of times I'll bring down a local little batch of paint down here so that I can dip back into it without corrupting. I don't have to clean my knife in between, and I won't corrupt my primary source of pigment, what's on my knife. It saves cleaning the knife, and it saves some of the paint that you would lose by cleaning your knife off. You'll see pretty quickly it all starts to look, it's that same green. Some more of this. So it's very much a brown reading, green leaning brown almost. I think it'll be easier to go from that brown pulling into a green. I'm going to compare this to my reference, and it's pretty low in value, so I may have to just elevate this. You'll see it's actually a bit darker than my lightest shadow for the petals, and it really isn't in the image, but this is pretty close. So I'll bring this up just a little bit with some yellow and yellow-green, and then we'll have a bit of a highlight here. I think this will probably work pretty well for everything but the stem where there's a little bit more brown, so I'll add more yellow and English red and take it more brown for that area. But for the main portion here, let me get in off the knife. I'm going to grab some yellow. And this is the Chev yellow I'm grabbing. Pull that down closer. Chev yellow is not very strong in tinting strength relative to the other pigments. So it makes subtle differences, but not big leaps a lot of times, even with seemingly large quantities. But I'm comparing it to my shadow down here, and you can tell it's still almost equivalent to that one. Definitely higher in value there. Equivalent, a little bit darker, so I want to bring that up even more. Excuse my having to clear my throat. This early in the day tends to phlegm up pretty quick when I start talking. A little bit of our intensity, but I'm going to bring down some maple yellow into this mix. What I'm trying to do is actually bring this up to the same value so that my darkest light and lightest shadow kind of fit in the same space, or the light can be just a tiny bit above in value. It's not critical, they're exact, but they need to be close so that the picture makes sense. You can tell what's light and what's shadow. You can break that down easily, and it makes more sense to your brain when it's looking at the picture. If you reverse that, it stutters, trying to figure out, okay, you said this was shadow, why is that light darker? Doesn't mean it always happens, some blacks absorb a lot of color, even in the light, but you can see, squinting, I think we're not quite there yet, but we're very close. Go ahead and continue adding some more Naples yellow. Mixing colors actually is getting them just right. As you get practice, it becomes easier. But I still find, for me, it takes. We're at almost a half an hour now in, and I'm still just laying out my color palette. This will help the rest of the painting process go fast, but alright, so you can see we're pretty close now. We're just a touch darker than that shadow, and I may bring that shadow down a little bit in value rather than bring this light up any further. This is part of the advantage of laying out your palette first, is you can make these adjustments as needed. Pull this mostly over to the side. And clean off the knife good, because the pink doesn't really have any green in it. And we're just going to take a little bit of our medium shadow, and we're going to bring that into the lighter shadow. We're just going to bring this down in value. I want that clear distinction between our light and our shadow values. Again, it's not a rule you can't break. Sometimes it makes sense to break, but for what I'm doing here, now you can kind of believe this is still a touch lighter than our light, but I think as we add our highlight and blend this in over on our leaf, we won't really notice. I'll bring a little bit more of the Naples yellow and the yellow. I do want to try to push this just a little bit more. And this is where, if you're really trying to capture reality, you really want to spend your time getting your colors right. You know, if you're capturing really what you're seeing, because even those little subtle differences, it's the subtleties that really make art into fine art, in my opinion. It's just how well things play together. And alright, so we're going to bring a bit of this up for our highlights. I'm just going to that'll work for that in there. Alright, so we need to bring a little bit of this down, add some Naples yellow and a touch of our English red again. We're going to make this a little more brown yellow for our... Probably I'm going to need to grab some more. See what I can do here with the with some white and yellow as well as the Naples yellow, because the stem is lighter in value than the some of our lighter green here. What we're trying to do is get a little bit lighter of a yellow brown. Looks like I went too cool. I'm going to put a big blob of the yellow in there actually. And you can kind of see how it's changing out on the palette here. We've got this almost, it's green, but it's got a lot more of a tan color to it, tan hue. And that's what I want to use for just the top portion of the stem along here. And I'm just going to take that and actually add in some, because there's not much showing in the light there. Take that, bring it down in value a little bit. Oh, that's way too much. Yeah, we're still a little too high in value. We'll just add a little bit of the burnt umber, which is a brown itself. So, you see we've got our stem hue for the light. And then we'll add a lot more. Don't have much stem that's in the shadow, but we got our lights basically done. So we're going to take what we had from some of our stem light, and we're just going to darken that down into our stem shadow, which goes pretty extreme. Fold this over. I know, 35 minutes and we haven't even put paint on here yet. This is the reality of painting. I mean, there's other methods of painting, other styles of painting, and I just brought down some burnt umber and some black. We don't want it to be real chromatic, and it's pretty extreme. We're going to bring it down on par to our extreme petals over here, shadows. But yes, people, as you get more experience, this portion of your time does become much reduced. You know, you really learn your palette inside and out, just what colors to pull down, what amounts to really push it towards the hue you want, the value you want, rather quickly. I'm still learning this process. touch too light. And for the shadows on the leaf, there's a couple of them that are basically lost in shadow. It's very dark. I'm just going to actually take black and step it up a little bit with some green. But yeah, we're pretty much, you know, same values. We got, let me get this glare off of there. Pretty much the same value, except that we're in a brown green rather than a purple. Alright, so like I said, for the leaves we're going to start with black. It's in deep shadow. And we're going to add our greens to bring it to that essentially a very dark mid-tone green. And I want to step it up until it reaches the same value as what I just did for the stem and what I have for the petals over here. So as you can see, it's a bit darker right now. I'm going to bring that value up yet with some more green. And in the interest of time, I took some larger blobs of paint, you know, larger amounts, to mix into this than I normally should have. If you're going for subtlety, trying to making too large of a shift at once really kind of detracts from the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish. So we've got our, it's not a whole lot of shift except on the one leaf as far as light into shadow, and it doesn't go down this extreme. It's just mostly what's already in the shadows. But as you can see now, we're very close in value. You know, it almost blends right in even though it's a different hue. Same thing with the, you know, our brown gray. They are basically sitting at the same value, even though you can tell one's green and one's gray. You know, they're different hues, but their values are very close. And so as we turn from shadow, what I'm going to do for the one leaf is actually I'm going to start the colors, and I'm just going to add on the brush a little bit of the shadow value to bring the value down into the shadow range as I'm painting, rather than it's such a small area. I don't want to pre-mix in this instance. So I want to say thanks to everybody that's subscribed. I hit a recent milestone. From what I've read, it's a big milestone to hit with 10 subscribers. Being a good place to reach. So I'm going to start by laying out the lights on the. I'm going to get another paper towel that's clean now that I've put so much paint on that one from mixing. So thank you to subscribers so far. Reaching 10 makes me very proud, very happy. And from here we can just continue to make more paintings. That's what we're here to do. Spend time painting together, improving our skills, and having paintings to share. Share, maybe even sell if someone has the interest. So get this where I can hold it. Alright, so I'm just going to start with the mid-range of my lights and my petals. And we'll just begin putting this onto the canvas. You see there's actually some shadows back in here with some rolling into lighter values along this edge. right on, go right over into the line. They have to share that edge, the petal and the leaf. A little bit of our paler light. We're catching the light out here. This has to roll into shadow. So, our light catching the tip out here. We got a shadow from this part of the petal catching on this back petal here. It's got a little bit of light catching, and I should have started with my shadows again. This petal jumped out in attention to me, and so I'm like, I need to paint that, but it's actually a bit premature. It's all going to work out though. We'll just have to pay closer attention to where those shadows are for my reference. And right here there's a bit of a roll, so we're gonna just blend this edge together. It goes from the pale to the more colorful. It's just very lightly, kind of small crisscrosses. Just right along that edge. And I apologize, it looks like the lighting is really washing this out. I did set the white balance at some point, but it apparently has shifted. Maybe if yeah, there we go, put a little bit of shadow on it. You can kind of see there's a transition here. Looks like it's still too stark for my tastes. Alright, so you see the petal kind of rolls up into the light a little bit. And it does so across these little veins, little rolls and folds in the petal. Alright, so we're gonna take up our shadow brush, and I'm going to use a number 2 filbert for the shadows here. What I'm going to do is get just a small bit of the shadow hue. It's probably going to stand out a bit too much, so I'm trying to get such a small amount on my brush. We're going to bring it down It's got too much color in it. So I need to put it on here and see what it looks like, if I like it or not, but it really should be more of a gray. Kind of rub this together as it turns into that shadow. You don't see it, but here is a fold, so see, we're staying dark to the lay this right along here. It needs to be nice sharp edge on this side with just a roll. And again, it's washing out. So you're not going to be able to see this really until, let's see if I can adjust the angle. If that helps clear this up for you. Bring it forward. Still not helping a whole lot. Seems to be this overhead light causing a lot of the problems. That is disappointing. So I'm gonna have to work on that somehow. Problem is, off the top of my head, I'm not coming up with a great means of fixing this issue. Yep. I'm gonna take another number 2 brush, go back into my lights. I kind of washed them away a little bit too much in here, so we're gonna lay them back in. So it's Wednesday, we're getting over that midweek slump here. Hopefully the rest of your week is laid out nicely and you'll get a wind down to the weekend. And what I'm doing here is putting a little bit of lighter. Again, it's kind of hard to see it. And there's definitely a transition here that needs cleaned up. And again, I would say we're making progress. I'm going to go ahead and start laying in the extreme shadow cast over here by the pedal so that we can represent things a little better. I think it'll make more sense of how this pedal appears. Just going along this outer edge here, we're gonna rock this up to, step this up to our lights. Step up a little bit, get some more of the next level of shadow, get it blended in here. This is coming out of the shadow. Stepping up even more into the next shadow hue. So I'm just basically starting down and stepping up as we go. And I definitely want this lighter shadow to be what shadow we display around the cast leaf. I guess we're kind of into the light there as well, so we'll get our light value worked into there. A little bit of a back to the light brush. We're going to this pinker light here. We've got. Shape my brush. I did. Get that brush shape nice and pointed to get some of this light laid in out on the edge. It's going to get a little brighter there. This kind of overlaps. A little more. Against this cast shadow, we want to leave this edge hard. The edges on this side of the petal are softer. Which means there's a little more blending of the paint as we get from the light into the shadow. I'm going to blend this kind of directionally a little bit because it really does just kind of roll right out into this. Trying to keep our I would say we went a little too purple on our shadow hues here. And if this were commission, I would definitely go back and fix this. But as practice, we're still learning other valuable pieces of information here, so. this because it kind of turns out into the light here and picks that up. It's soft. And that's most of the petals. We'll have to do a little bit of touch-up blending here. This is definitely a lighter hue where it first peeks out from behind the other petal. Just kind of blend it out. I hope this is picking up a little better than the lighter petals did. I'm just going to kind of blend the edges together here. Make the transition into the shadow kind of smooth across the petal. I can't believe how much that washes out. Let's see here. There's a better view of it. You can see this kind of sticks out here. The leaf. And we got our petal here. It really washes out the white here. I'm going to, we'll bring this down a little bit because it's needs some extra color out in here, I think. Bring this some more color in here. Just trying to add a little more form to the main petal here by bringing the darker light into the edges of the lighter light. And kind of making it, lightest spot here, darker, lighter spot up here as it turned up. Just little subtleties, little variations. Alright, so we're going to move on to the leaves now. I'm going to start with the shadows. And do our darkest leaves first. This one's pretty much lost in shadow here. You can't see much about it. It'll stand out more once the background is in black or near black. But it's caught in by this shadow cast by the bear. A large portion of this one is also very much in the extreme shadow. Allow a little bit of a step up on this towards the petals so that we can see some form. And there's a little bit of light catching out here. Start with switch to our stems shadow. The whole bottom side of this shadow here, right up against the pillow where it first starts. It comes up at an angle. The bottom side of this stem is going to stay in that extreme shadow. It's got to roll around into the light. I apologize for the step in front of the camera. This comes right up into the leaves. And you'll see this edge is a little bit ragged. We're going to clean that up with our background, laying our background right up on it. So we're going to move towards our light on our stem. Lay in a very narrow strip right along there. And we're going to clean the brush off and switch to one of the light brushes. Highlight to make sure we don't miss spot for it. I'm going to blend this together a little bit here so you can see there's a transition right from the light right into that shadow. I'll have to move this one real close to the camera and I'll maybe wash out that so you can get a good view of it when we get done. Laying that highlight. We've got a touch of that leaf, just picking up a little bit of light down there. So we're going to switch to our leaves now. We're going to put in some green on this side leaf, but it's also showing a good bit of that stem color, so we're going to go over top of that with the stem color from the center out. Really bring that this goes right into that shadow. Get a nice straight edge again. Want these points on the leaves to show. That is one of the characteristics of rose leaves, is that they have a point. Jagged edges. Alright, so we've got a little bit of light that caught out here. I'm going to step that up just a little bit more. A little bit of light that was catching right at the edge of the... Let's see if this is in white here. But it quickly turns into a shadow. rolls down to that shadow, and by roll we mean we need to soften that edge. We don't have a distinct area where it just disappears. You don't need to spend a lot of time. This one's more of a cast shadow on this piece. I don't spend a lot of time in the shadows working in much detail because shadows, they're lacking a light, so you can't really see the details that's in there. I'm going to take this stem color that I said appears pretty heavily out here on this leaf, and I'm going to lay it in on the center. And kind of blend it with what's there. We have a little bit of a highlight that dips right out here. And a little bit of highlight that's laying in here. And then we'll continue to blend this out. I think I want to pick up some more of the lighter green. I'm going to work with in here. Show this getting a little more light here. Really, we're painting with light. At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to control. How the light comes off of this painting. Just a touch of light down in here. Back into the shadow. And I guess I would say the stem is on the top there, so I need to make sure I clean up that stem edge. Stem highlights back. Put this down into the stem shadows. And we're just about done with this one. With the rose for today. There might be some minor adjustments to make as we get more of the background laid in. Let me see if I can move this painting a little closer. See if the camera will pick it up a little better once. Let's see what we got here. So on Friday we're going to do another Bob Ross style. Let's see what we're looking at here. It's still washed out quite a bit, but I think it'll really stand out when we get back to the Alright. Let me back this back up here. I hope that you found this enjoyable today. I hope you enjoyed painting along. I'd love to see your results. If you care to join us on Friday, we will be doing a wet on wet landscape. And then we will pick this piece back up next Monday and next Wednesday at the same time. And on Monday we will be doing a still life of in black and white. So we're just doing edges, values, as the terminology that Evolve would use. And something is missing here. And that's that the stem. Sorry, but I just noticed there's an issue here with the stem and the shadow that's cast. I did not draw that part of the stem in. Like the stem just gets shorter. Cast shadow. So anyway, if you like this video, please make sure you click the like button so that YouTube and myself will know that you like the content. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe for further notifications and to more easily follow along with these videos. Thank you if you have subscribed, and until next time, remember, don't be too hard on yourself, just keep painting. Bye-bye.